Today we're celebrating National Ice Cream Day on July 18th by taking ice cream to the next level in an ice cream cake. It's only fitting that today's episode is sponsored by Sensodyne, the #1 dentist-recommended toothpaste for sensitive teeth. If you have sensitive teeth, Sensodyne Rapid Relief can protect your teeth and help you enjoy the subject of today's episode, ice cream cake. Let's get down to basics. So for the ice cream layers of our ice cream cake, you could most certainly buy your favorite ice cream, let it defrost in the fridge until it has the consistency of soft serve, and just use that. But if you want to make your very own custard from scratch, here's how you do it. We got 15 ounces of whole milk, 12 ounces of heavy cream, and 3 ounces of sugar that we're going to bring to a bare simmer. While that's coming up over medium-low heat, we are separating out 6 large egg yolks into a large heat-proof bowl, and for our vanilla custard, we're going to scrape out the contents of 1 large vanilla bean, tossing those delicious little seeds and our vanilla bean carcass into our nearly simmering dairy. Whisk that to combine and then back over to the egg yolks, where at the very last minute we're going to add 3 3/4 ounces of granulated sugar and whisking until thick and ribbony. We're doing this at the last minute because if you let egg yolks and sugar sit too long, they can sort of scramble the eggs and ruin your texture. Now when the milk, cream, sugar, and vanilla mixture just starts to bubble, we're going to use it to temper our eggs, that is, slowly ladle in about half the mixture while whisking constantly so as, once again, not to scramble your eggs. Kendall says I do this way too slowly, so I don't know, maybe you can do it a little faster, but once you've added about half the mixture, it's safe to add it back to the pot, once again whisking constantly, nice and slow, and bring it back on over to the stove top where we're going to heat it, once again whisking pretty constantly to a temperature of 180 degrees Fahrenheit over medium-low flame. Once you get her up there, it's time to strain the mixture through a fine mesh sieve, both to catch our vanilla pod and any accidentally scrambled bits, and allow to cool completely before churning. We're also going to do a chocolate ice cream layer to this cake, very similar recipe, except for the addition of, as you may have guessed, chocolate, 1 ounce of cocoa powder, and a half teaspoon of instant espresso powder get tiny whisked into our 6 3/4 ounces of sugar. We are also finely chopping 4 ounces of high quality dark chocolate with every intention of melting it into our custard. I forgot to divvy up the cocoa sugar mixture between the egg yolks and the cream, no big deal, just means we're really going to need that damp kitchen towel wrapped around the base of our bowl to keep it steady as we repeat all the steps for the vanilla ice cream verbatim. Temper the egg yolks with half the simmering dairy mixture, add it back to the pot, cook over medium-low flame until it hits $1.80, whisking pretty constantly the whole time. But this time, once we get up to temp, we are adding all of that lovely chopped chocolate, allowing it to gently melt into our custard, deepening its chocolate flavor. Whisk until no chunks of chocolate remain, add a teaspoon of vanilla if you like, and then just like with the vanilla, it's time to strain through a fine mesh sieve and chill as quickly as possible. Normally that would mean at least 4 hours in the fridge, but because I don't want to spend all day making an ice cream cake, I'm going to speed things up by virtue of an ice bath. Nestling my tub-o custard in a big old bowl filled with ice and water, whisking occasionally to make sure that it's getting cooled evenly until it's nice and chilly, about 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Meanwhile, we can make our other stuff. First, a simple caramel sauce. 8 1/2 ounces of sugar and 2 1/2 ounces of water are combined in a high-walled sauté pan, brought to a simmer without stirring, and cooked over medium-high heat until they reach a lovely amber color. During this process, you might notice tiny little crystals starting to form around the outside of the bubbling mixture. These are bad news and a one-way ticket to crystallizing your caramel. The fix is simple. Keep a lid on your pot while the caramel is cooking. The humidity in the pot will dissolve the crystals and you'll end up with a nice smooth caramel. Once everything's a nice amber golden brown color, we're going to kill the heat and carefully add 2 ounces of unsalted butter cut up into small pieces, whisking to make sure that it's fully melted. A lot of people do cream and then butter, but adding the butter first helps cool things down a little bit so the caramel doesn't bubble as frighteningly when you add the cream. 4 ounces of it a little bit at a time, whisking constantly, and by the time all the very scary bubbles have receded, you should have a nice, smooth, creamy caramel. Make sure you salt it generously. Caramel without salt is like a mustache without a kiss, or however the old saying goes, and set aside to cool completely while we make us some candied peanuts. You can definitely just buy these, you don't need to make them, but I wanted to show you guys an example of when you want to encourage rather than discourage crystallization. We're combining 5 ounces of sugar, 3 ounces of water, and 10 ounces of roasted unsalted peanuts, cooking over medium-high heat and doing what you're never supposed to do with caramel, stir it rigorously, which encourages crystallization as you're about to see. The sugar is going to start to seize up and glue itself to the peanuts. This is normally the point at which you'd throw away your your caramel and start over, but we're going to keep cooking it over medium-low heat until the sugar starts to remelt, caramelize, and turn a lovely toasty golden brown, leaving us with some old-timey style candied peanuts that you can definitely just buy and don't need to make on your own. But if you do, go ahead and spread them out on a parchment-lined baking sheet and allow them to cool completely before putting them to use in your ice cream cake. I'm saving a bunch for garnish, but I'm grabbing about a cup and a half of these and smashing them up in a zip-top bag, dumping them into a bowl and combining them with our cooled caramel to make a chewy, crunchy, candy bar-like layer in the center of our ice cream cake. Now, we could stop the episode here. You could just whip up a bowl of this stuff and eat it with a spoon and you'd be perfectly happy with your life, but whoever you're making this cake for would be pretty disappointed on their birthday, so we must soldier on. Next up, a chocolate caramel fudge that comes straight from Jess's family recipe book. In a medium saucepan, we are combining 4 ounces of unsalted butter, 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk, 5 ounces of sugar, and 2 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. Then we're bringing it to a simmer and cooking for 10 to 15 minutes, which should yield a smooth, creamy chocolate fudge caramel thing that freezes up beautifully into a dense, chewy, flavorful layer. Then last but kind of first, we have the base of our cake. I got about 12 ounces of chocolate sandwich cookies that I'm going to pulse in a food processor until reduced to a fine dust, and combine with 3 ounces of melted unsalted butter. This is going to form a super easy, crunchy cookie base for our cake. Now finally, to assemble, I got myself a 10-inch springform pan, which I'm going to line with acetate film. You do not have to do this if you plan on frosting your cake with whipped cream or whatever, but if you want a nice, clean, sharp exterior that needs no frosting, this is your ticket. This stuff's available for cheap online and makes for beautiful cakes. So to finally start building our cake, we're going to dump our cookie butter mixture into the bottom of the cake pan and find a nice flat bottom thing like this ramekin to press it firmly into a flat, even layer. Go ahead and pop this into the freezer for about half an hour whilst we commence to churning. Now once again, if you bought your ice cream, this is not a step that you need to engage in. Just let it defrost in the fridge for half an hour to an hour, beat it with a hand mixer until it has the consistency of soft serve, and you're good to go. But if you joined us in making your own custard, this is the time that we need to churn it until it has the consistency of soft serve, which after a quick taste test, we can form into the first layer of our cake. It's as simple as dumping it in and trying to smooth it out as smoothly as possible so that you end up with nice, clean, even layers. An offset spatula, bowl scraper, or bench scraper are very useful in this situation. Once we've got it spread out evenly, this guy's headed back into the freezer for about an hour to firm up, and then this is optionally where you can add your secret channel of chocolate caramel fudge. You'll notice that I'm digging a sort of ring out of the ice cream, and then it's into this ring that I'm going to pipe our cooled fudge. Top it up with your scooped out ice cream and nobody will even know that it's there until they slice into it, and that's the whole idea. Anyway, we're smoothing this guy back out and dropping him back in the freezer for at least another half hour, just enough to firm up so that we can add our layer of candied peanut caramel. I love the things I get to say on this show sometimes. Likewise, get that nice and super smooth, pop it back into the freezer for another half hour to an hour, during which time we can churn our next ice cream. Once churned, we can add it to the cake, get it nice and smooth, just like the vanilla, and that's it. The body of our cake is done. To ensure structural integrity, we're going to let it camp out in the freezer overnight before removing, decorating, and serving. Speaking of decorating, I'm going to make a super simple chocolate ganache, one that will be liquid at room temperature but solidify once it hits the cake. We're just finely chopping 9 ounces of high quality dark chocolate, covering with 6.5 ounces of simmering heavy cream in a heat-proof bowl, covering and letting sit for 5 minutes before whisking into a smooth chocolate ganache. Now, if you didn't chop your chocolate finely enough, like me, you might find that you still have some chunkers floating around in there, and the fix for that is to place it over a double boiler or a steaming pot of water and let the gentle, steamy heat melt the chocolate the rest of the way. Once you got that nice and smooth and placed into a squeeze bottle or piping bag of some kind, it's time to lift it up, let it drape for the camera, maybe stick your finger under there, grab yourself a sample, make sure it's not poisoned or anything. Nope, no poison. And then it's time to crack this bad boy open. Now I'm just using my hot hands to warm the sides of the springform pan. If you did not use the acetate film, you might want to run a butter knife around the outside to separate it from the cake pan. Once you've done that, things should pop open pretty easily, revealing a nice, neat ice cream cake, depending of course on your attention to detail and the steadiness of your hands, both of which I have very little. Once you've removed the film, because of all the butter and the crust, it should slide pretty easily onto a cake stand for decoration. But like all cake moving processes, it's pretty harrowing. Once you get it on there though, all there is left to do is make it look pretty. Again, something I'm not terribly good at. I also definitely made my ganache way too thick so that it did not drip down the sides of the cake, so I would do more like 7 or 8 ounces of chocolate instead of 9. But even if your drippage looks ugly as sin like this, mess, we can still rescue it and make it look beautiful by turning it into an aggro crag of candy, nuts, cookies, wafers, sprinkles, everything that you can imagine. Ice cream cakes in and of themselves are the definition of excess, so you might as well go crazy with the toppings. And as you can see, even with my crappy ganache, this doesn't look half bad. It's like an obstacle course of deliciousness. Dip a sharp knife in a tall container of very hot water, wipe it clean, and you should end up with nice, clean cuts through your cake. Now here's a cross section I've been looking forward to since yesterday. Oh yeah, candy bar ice cream cake, folks. 24 hours in the making and worth every calorie. Crunchy, creamy, chewy, sweet, salty, and everything in between. It is absolutely delicious and sensitive teeth, Andy? Well, in that case, there's only one place to turn, the sponsor of today's episode, Sensodyne. Switching to a daily sensitivity toothpaste is an easy way to make sure you can enjoy your favorite cold treats. Just 3 days of twice daily brushing with Sensodyne Rapid Relief will help you be ready to enjoy the foods and drinks you love without sensitivity, which is especially timely with National Ice Cream Day just around the corner on July 18th. Life's too short to miss out on the things you love due to twinges caused by sensitivity, so start brushing twice daily with Sensodyne Rapid Relief today to enjoy your ice cream cake pain-free.